Yeah, the next 4 lectures we are going to discuss about governance. This is governance of global supply chain networks. It's a very, very important aspect, and this has been given attention in the previous arena, but not as much in recent times. And so the result is that there are a lot of hiccups that the companies are facing because of that. So let's go through what governance is and then see. So the contents of this lecture and the next one are, we talk about the supply chain networks, integrated supply chain networks. As we saw before, there are 2 kinds of networks. One is vertically integrated supply chains. Another one is network organizations. And we talk about the basic ecosystem, the multi-layer governance, orchestration model, and so on, and finally conclude. So what are vertically integrated network organizations? Until the early 1980s, firms such as IBM, GM, Ford are all vertically integrated multi-dimensional firms. In other words, they are basically everything from the suppliers to the logistics. Everything belongs to only one person, one company. So that is, there is an authority, hierarchical authority associated with this particular firm. Although they are called companies, they are basically huge companies with several divisions, and each division is responsible for something like design, production, commercial, and so on. But basically they are all internal to the firm, and there is a CEO who is talking about who is in charge of the entire company, and under him there are presidents, vice presidents, and so on. So this is the kind of organization that one is used to. Let's look at more detail of this in this one. But today we have globally networked modular organizations, as we have seen in the previous lectures, because of modularity of products, and that has resulted in outsourcing and liberalization and globalization and all that. And so we have networked organizations, all right. They are independent organizations. So let's look at how to govern those kind of organizations. So what is the supply chain governance function? I mean, what do you mean by supply? In global supply chains, components visit several countries, organizations such as ports, customs, distribution centers, and facilities of suppliers, contract manufacturers, logistics providers, before reaching the retail shop and the customers. In other words, between the manufacturer and the retail shop, there are several organizations, and before manufacturing, there are lots of suppliers who supply from various countries into this. So if you count the number of organizations that are involved in a global supply chain, it could easily run into thousands. So when you have organizations which are running into thousands, how do you govern them? These diverse interest groups need to align themselves to create a competitive supply chain. In other words, you have to basically govern this, and each is an independent company, and one has nothing to do with each other, and there is no authority of one over the other, except there is a common interest of supplying the products. So you have to create the competitive supply chain. So unless the suppliers supply the manufacturing, supply the components, the manufacturer cannot start his manufacturing. And if for some reason supplier cannot supply, then the manufacturing stops. So there is an interdependence between these organizations, and if one cannot function, the other is automatically transmitted to the other organization. So in such this one, they basically work because of single common goal of everybody benefits, everybody has an incentivization. So you have 3, as we have seen before, we have 3 kinds of flows: goods, information, and finances. They have to be facilitated by somebody who is either inside or outside. Either is one of the partners, the partners can elect somebody, and there can be a board which manages it, or there is a partner, senior partner, which is high profile partner like General Motors or Dell or somebody, and they try to manage, or Walmart. But there could be a broker who is outside. In other words, the broker basically facilitates everyone, and he is the one who takes all the pains to unify all these people and making the supply chain work. So what are the functions of this governance? The procurement. Procurement is basically the manufacturing to suppliers procure. The manufacturer procures from the suppliers. That's a very important function. That is usually global, international. And second is planning and coordination. Who does what and when? That's basically is the planning, and coordination is basically is supplies telling people what to do and see that they are given the plans and so on. And execution is monitoring and control. These are all important functions of governance. Let's see how these are done in this. So in vertically integrated supply chains, we have basically coordination control activities along the value chain are managed through ownership. In other words, you own that, so people have to listen to you. And direct managerial oversight, and sometimes they may stretch across borders. So if somebody, General Motors has a company, and whether it is in India and China, and it may have branches anywhere in the world, but everybody has to listen to the president. So the president is the one who controls this one. So because it is vertically integrated, there are several vertically integrated companies like Flexatronics, Zara, and so on. We'll see some of these examples in this. So governance structures are in vertically integrated supply chains. What are their functions? There are basically several kinds of architectures of this. One is functional structure. The functional structure is people and activities are grouped by resource, such as finance, marketing, engineering, R&D, human resources, and so on. So basically, each of these functions have managers who particularly manage, and their employees and so on. So there are several layers of employees who are trying to help in each case. So but each function is different, and this is the characteristic of most of the firms even today, whether they are vertically integrated or not. Each firm in a network has these kind of functional architecture. These functional architectures are very popular. They are basically available in educational institutions, in services, and so on. The other kinds of architectures are product architecture. It depends on the product. If you are producing several kinds of products, so these products are multidivisional firms structured according to outputs. Products, services, programs, projects, and so on. So General Motors is an example where it is this one. There are other organization structures like custom-based organizations. In other words, who are your customers? Based on the customer. If you're, for example, General Electric has left a lot of this one. It has appliances like dishwashers, air conditioners, and so on. So they are basically, their customers are the homeowners, whereas construction and power generation, they provide equipment for all these cranes and generators, boilers, and so on. So their customers are different, and their Hong Kong based Li & Fung is also organized according to customer groups. So the customers, you can say regional customers. All customers from US are going to one particular group. All customers from Asia, they go to another particular group, but still it is customer based. So matrix structure is different. Matrix structure provides technological expertise within functions and horizontal coordination of the product line into the same departments. In other words, you have a matrix where you have the functional structures, The functional structures are finance, marketing, engineering, R&D, and so on. And you have processes, and which actually run horizontally. And these processes actually use the expertise of finance, marketing, engineering, R&D, and HR. To, for example, if you have a supply chain process which goes end to end, or a product development process, or a delivery process, you require, if you have product development, you require R&D, you require engineering, you require HR, you require finally marketing, and you of course require finance and everything. So basically it's a process. Who dominates, whether the functional, this one, or this one, it depends on the particular organization and the people involved. And also there is what is called process structure. So let us look at each of these things. One is in vertically this one. Let us look at functional organization. You have a CEO, and you have VP, Vice President Manufacturing, Vice President Finance, Vice President Marketing, and Vice President, you can have HR, Human Relations. Depending on the particular organization and the vertical, you have several Vice Presidents. Now, what does the Vice President Manufacturing look for? He look for transportation to, this is the transportation, B2B transportation from suppliers to this one, and input inventory, purchasing, procurement from the suppliers, and all the production schedules. He is in charge of all this. So if you look at finance, he looks at facility planning, credit authorization, and funds generation. In other words, if you have to take blank loans, or you have to give loans, letter of credits, or all that kind of thing is decided by the finance. And VP Marketing, Vice President Marketing, he deals with order processing, forecasting is a very important function, sales, warehousing, and so on. So each of these functions are dealt with by different people. This is the functional organization, which is very typical. I mean, you can, if you look at any of these organizations in any country, you will find lot of these people organized according to this. And there is customer based organization structures, departments organized against around customer groups, GE organized as aerospace, appliance, construction, industrial, and power generation groups. So, and popular because big super customers insist dedicated units to serve their needs. Now, supposing you have somebody like Boeing, to whom GE is supplying aircraft engines. So in which case, Boeing wants separate somebody and all the attention that it required and so on. Supposing their power generation, big boilers and generation equipment is being supplied to an electricity authority of some state. It's a huge budget. So basically they want attention to this. Advantages of superior knowledge about the customer preferences and buying habits, using the point of sale information, internet and databases. I mean, there is an advantage about that. So structure is in line with the current day emphasis. You say customer is the king. So they are saying customer focus, outsourcing based on core competencies. So how are you outsourcing? You outsource somebody based on, if somebody is very good in sewing, you will give it the clothes to him. If somebody is very good in dyeing, you give it to him. So what you outsource is going to be depending on the core competencies of the people. So, and core competencies means the customer, you choose this outsourcing, this one, depending on the customer, this one. And so that's why it's important to have this kind of structure. Competitive advantage to market knowledge. So the current day emphasis is basically customer focus, core competencies, and market knowledge. These are all the things that are in line with the customer, because the customer is the one that gives the focus. Depending on that, what the customer wants, you need to have those core competencies or this one, and also you should have the market knowledge to sell this. So this these customer focused structures are of that type, and service industries such as banks, hotels, telecom firms follow this particular structure. So, there are product organization structures. There are what are called strategic business units, strategic business unit 1, 2 and 3 and so on. If you have a car, if this is a automobile company, then this is one car, this is another car, this is a small car, and these are vans and so on. So, basically, and each has these functional units. So, each of these strategic business units can be again customer based or function based, functional this one. So, you can organize according to the product. So, basically when you have the customer is basically wanting the product. This is aerospace. Then in such a case, you can have this kind of strategic units for that. And you have what is called process based structures. In other words, you have there several functions, and functions asset the processor. This can be new product development process. This can be order to delivery process. This can be the entire supply chain process. So, you can define these particular processes. Now, processes are basically dependent on these functions. If it is supply chain, then it depends on procurement, it depends on manufacturing, it depends on distribution, it depends on retailing and so on. And supposing this is order to delivery, then it depends on distribution, it depends on manufacturing, and it depends on procurement and so on. So, basically the issue is you define your processes and attach the functions to them, and the process owners are the ones who assist the CEO here. So, this is the kind of this one that is, if you take a supply chain, you have a procurement function, you can have this procurement fellow, and a procurement fellow is the one who does the procurement. And if you have manufacturing, well, this is the fellow who is manufacturing, and if you have distribution, retail and so on, then this is the fellow who controls the distribution and retail. And you can see the corresponding functions, which are HR, finance, marketing and manufacturing, R&D, and all these functional elements are basically organized according to the requirements of these processes. So, what is a business process? A business process is a structured set of activities ordered across time and space. That is ordered across time and space. In other words, all the activities need not have to be done at one place. So, their space they are basically across space, and they need not have to be done at the same time. So, they can be either sequential, they can be parallel, with clearly defined inputs and outputs to produce specified output for a particular customer. So, emphasis is on how work is done in an organization rather than what products are delivered. So, here if I want a new product development process, what are all the functions that you require, and what are the this definitely you need a HR, you need R&D, you need marketing and other people for new product development process. So, this is what is important now for this is what this produce, which means what is the time that is taken to market a particular product, to develop it, to get the clinical trials, to test it and so on, and also what is the amount of the innovations that you are making, what is the market for this and so on. They are all the issues here in the new product development. So, for this the functions are not important, what this produces, how many new products, how many patents, how many have been entered the market, and how are they doing, that is more important than having an R&D this one. So, the competencies of the R&D are judged by the process, and similarly the order to delivery process. So, you can have any amount of inventory, facilities, manufacturing and all that, how much time it is taking to deliver a particular product. Same thing is with supplier, whatever process is. So, the processes dominate in a process management structure. Well, here is the matrix structure where you have these functional structures: manufacturing, engineering, marketing, transportation, finance and accounting, and so on. And there is, supposing there is a function called logistics. Logistics is a horizontal flow, it's a project, this one kind of thing, but logistics is required in manufacturing. In other words, if you want to get something from procurement function of something, get from suppliers, then you require logistics. If you want to deliver some the things to your distributor, then you require the logistics. Same thing, engineering, product design may not require so much of logistics, but marketing, transportation, routing, sales forecasting, and finance and accounting, this is the order processing. So the horizontal flow is this one. So logistics is one thing, and similarly if you take some processes like HR, you can take other process like finance. So basically they become the processes where you have the matrix structure for this. So in other words, the authority rests with these guys. So finance guys or logistics guys or HR guys, they don't have authority. They basically have to listen to these people because they are supportive functions of these functional units. So let us look at one of the examples here, and the example is a company called Zara, which is a vertically integrated company. Zara is a supply chain. It's a company which I taken. It's a Spanish company based out of Barcelona, and it is basically a subsidiary of a company called Inditex. And so I took this example because it's so unconventional. What is unconventional? It's a fashion high fashion company. If it's a fashion company for clothes, basically whose customers are young people, women, children, and so on. So basically, what is the one that is important? If you look at what these fashion companies do, they usually do the design and have catwalks and so on, and afterwards they manufacture, which is usually outsourced to some people, and then they get it to the distribution, get it to the retail shelves for summer, for winter, for spring, and so on, and fall. So for all the seasons, they get it to the market, the new ones, and afterwards there are sales and all these kind of things that happen. In other words, if you take typically a fashion company, what are the 3 or 4 this one? Design is very important. It is done custom design. In other words, there are design teams who are looking at the fashions, and afterwards they test it out on catwalks and so on. And second thing they do is they take the designs and then outsource it to some low cost manufacturer. And third one they do is they basically prices gives it to the retail stores to sell it. In other words, except basically for the design, all the other things and the brand, design and brand, all the other things are all given to outsiders. But Zara is different. Zara defies most of the conventional wisdom about how supply chains should be run. Some of Zara's practices may seem objectionable, if not crazy, but when taken individually. So let's look at what are the practices. While it pays outsourced, Zara keeps almost half the production in-house. So Zara basically does everything by itself. Now Zara intentionally leaves extra capacity. So if you look at any of the manufacturing firms, they are highly asset intensive. In other words, most of these firms have capital expenditure in terms of machines, in terms of human resources, experts who knows what to do with those machines and so on. So given that kind of thing, what do you want to do? You want to run the factory 24 hours. You want to have every machine utilized 24 hours. So, but then Zara intentionally leaves extra capacity. It doesn't want to load itself for 24 or 24/7. So, Zara manufactures and distributes products in small batches. So, most of the people, what in fashion, this one, the larger the batch size is, then you get into economies of scale. What happens is, for each batch size, you have setup costs. In other words, all the equipment or the people that they have to be tuned to that particular batch of products. If you are doing a shirt of certain color, or if you are doing trousers of a certain color, or you are doing skirts of a certain color, depending on what it is, then the entire this particular the manufacturer and this one has to be this one. So, what people do to reduce the setup cost, what people usually do is to have large batches. So, if you have a batch, for example, which runs the whole day, then in such a case you need not have to you reduce the setup cost. But Zara manufactures and distributes products in very small quantities. In other words, it wants to sell whatever it produces within 2 weeks, otherwise the whole thing goes off. So, it leaves all its equipment, some of its equipment without work and so on. So, basically you have, this is another unconventional thing. Zara manages all design, warehouse and distribution, logistics itself. So, it's highly centralized company. It does, like old companies, it does everything by itself. It doesn't outsource. So, this doesn't believe in core competency principles and low cost outsourcing and going to low cost countries and so on. It does everything by itself. Now, what about design? We'll come to that. Design is an important thing. A very important thing here, as I said before, that Zara does not spend much time in the design. So, whereas others spend time in design. What does Zara do for design? Actually, what Zara says is, we invest in prime locations. Most of these fashion shops are not in prime locations, because prime locations rents are very heavy. So, they are not, but Zara always is in prime locations. We place great care in the presentation of our storefronts. So, if you look at Zara's, this one, the presentation, and it is in high places, and it is the presentation is excellent. That is how we project our image. So, the image is great. That's what they are in the high street, and their presentations in the storefronts are excellent. So, but then we want our clients to enter a beautiful store and feel good, and where they are offered the latest fashions and at reasonable prices. But most important, we want our customers to understand, if they like something, they must buy it now. So, there is pressure on the customer. If they like something, it has to be, they have to buy it now, because it won't be in the shop in the following week. Either it is sold to somebody else, or it is removed from the shelves. So, Zara makes sure nothing is on its shelves for more than 2 weeks. So, that puts on the pressure on the customer, saying that, look, if I want to like it, I better buy it now. It's all about creating a climate of scarcity and opportunity. So, it's reasonably cheap, affordable by the middle class, and if you want to buy, you buy it now, you make the decision now. And you will find that the average number of visits to a Zara shop are much more than the average number of visits to any other shop. That's because people find that Zara changes things very fast, and they follow this pattern. They follow this pattern of keeping what is fashionable today. And the fashion, this changes every 15 days, so it's being updated. So, it is not like other stores where they basically use either spring or summer, they are 4 seasons. But for Zara, it is every day is a season. So, there are 52 seasons for if they change, start keeping in this. So the number of seasons is different. So the scarcity and opportunity is the one that's how Zara puts pressure on the customers. So if you look at the Zara, this one, how does Zara design things? This is the one that is important here. Close watch on trends and buying behavior. So this is like reverse engineering. They don't design, some exotic things and so on. They basically look at what is being used or what people are using today. Market research on university campuses, discos and other venues. Where are these young people? So you look at what they are wearing, what color is they like and so on. And feedback from the stores, sales report, qualitative comments. So instead of designing something and then trying out on catwalks and so on, what Zara does is observe the behavior of your customers in various places like in the schools, in the markets, and get a feedback reports of what is being sold in various retail shops and so on. So that is the design. So the design is basically not the kind of original or something. It's collecting various information. It's called crowdsourcing. In other words, you find out from various catwalks, various exhibitions and so on, and then that is design. So that's one of the things how Zara differs from other companies. So, and quick decisions. There is a headquarters regional manager collects and analyzes the feedback. There is a regional manager who collects and analyzes the feedback. And then commercial team sits with designers to use the information to create new lines and break existing ones. Deciding on the commercial team on the fabric cut and price points to the new garments. So there is a designer team, there is a sewing team and so on. They decide depending on the feedback that you get and depending on the availability of the fabrics, they basically decide on what is to be made. And of course, what is the inventory control? The fabric from the cloth and dyeing, franchising and production. So here you should note one point that Zara has an inventory of the cloth. So supposing the fashionists find that there is some color, some design shirts which are famous on silk, but they may not have silk in the inventory, they make it on a cotton and then try and sell it and show that it is a brand which is cheaper than that, but it is equivalent in terms of the fashion. And of course, finally, distribution to all the stores. So there are four things that Zara does. One thing is closely watch the buying behavior. So you need not have to invent what will be the buying behavior. Watch what it is today. And supply within 2 weeks those products before anything changes with the customers. And of course, you go through the procedure of whatever you have observed using your inventory, manufacturing, or and then using this and so on. So you have state-of-the-art inventory stores and all that to store all this. You have excess manufacturing capacity. So you could do all whatever you want with those. So what is the Zara supply chain here? Zara supply chain is Zara removed value design, the traditional fashion industry business model. So if you look at the fashion industry in the traditionally, then design is one of the fundamental things. And then they try it over this. Instead, Zara would scan the best designs by following the world's leading fashion shows and scanning promising designs of others. So this is, either you can call it reverse engineering or crowdsourcing, whatever. So they don't want to spend any time on this. So once they observe a fashion, the color, the type, the designs and all that, within 2 weeks it is in the shelf. So that's where their expertise is. They want to concentrate on that. The designs are shared with a network of Jara factories which produce the required quantities just in time. Usually what people take 6 months, they do it in 2 weeks. So that's where the fast in time comes. All items are priced and tagged before delivery to the stores. So the stores fellows, because they are also, it's vertically integrated, even the stores are owned by Zara. So at the factory itself, all the items are priced and tagged. Zara can react swiftly to changing market trends and quickly distribute new products throughout its system. So you can see here that the swift change to market trends and distribute the products. As I said, you observe the design change, that's the market trend. Immediately your team goes in and try to prepare and manufacture those goods, and they're all supplied, including manufacturing, within 2 weeks. So that's how Zara says. So from design to everything is super fast in case of Zara. While other companies in the industry take up 9 months to get new product lines into their shops, Zara takes only 2 or 3 weeks. So that's a huge, immense advantage, where if something is not fashionable, you don't spend your time. That's the advantage. And if something is fashionable, you use all your resources to get to the market what is fashionable. So in this kind of environment, you don't lose much. But it follows the unconventional philosophy, like design and art not its own, it's crowdsourced, whereas, and also it has excess manufacturing capacity and very high profile equipment, modern equipment and so on. So, but it does everything itself. So it doesn't outsource anything. So supposing you want to compare Zara to other business models, H&M and Gap and others and so on. Zara business model differs from that of H&M. H&M outsources all its production. Right. Prices lower and spends more on advertising, and the stores less upscale. Right. So here it outsources so that it can price lower, and it spends more on advertising, and stores are in upscale. So Zara retained many production in-house and keep all internal and external activities under strict control. It doesn't spend any money on advertising. It doesn't advertise. And its prices are reasonable, and all its stores are in high profile, as we have seen. Both Gap and H&M, they realized on traditional push approach. There are 2 approaches that people follow. One is push, that is, you manufacture something and send it to the stores, and you have all kinds of advertising and other campaigns so that you can basically motivate the customers to buy. That's one thing. On the other hand, what Zara follows is what is called the pull approach, where attracting shoppers with small collections and new weekly offerings in reaction to the customers. So you find out what the customers want, you supply them within almost just in time, like the order, made to order kind of thing, and they basically supply it to the customer within 2 weeks at a reasonable price. So you get what you want and you pay a little more, and there is no, Zara has no sales in terms of none of the Zara's products are refurbished or sent off to the distribution centers. At Gap, design preceded manufacturing and commercial activity. Zara takes a team approach, design, manufacturing, commercialization, all done at one stroke. So you look at what customers want, you design, you manufacture, you commercialize, send it to your store. So in other words, in the fashion industry, design is important. Jara does this by crowdsourcing, and in the fashion industry, prices are important. It prices reasonably, and in fashion industry, people look for low prices, and in stores like Walmart and others, and in sales. But this puts in high places in the high markets, and basically, and prices it low, and people keep inventory for a long time, maybe 3-4 months, but Jara keeps it only for 2 to 3 weeks. So if you look at what is the kind of organized governance structure that Jara has, it is a just-in-time governance structure. In other words, whatever happens inside the system, there must be somebody who is coordinating all the activities. For each order, for whatever they observe, whether it is a pant or a shirt or a skirt or whatever, then different people come into, and different designers come into action, and different materials are sourced, or whatever is there is used, and they go to the market within 2 weeks, and they are removed from the shelves if they are not sold within 2 weeks. So this is the kind of approach that Jara follows. So what is the management time here? The key governance team for managing internal activities for each product line, it consists of the designer. This is important, but the inputs to designer are not his innovative techniques, but it is crowdsourced knowledge what people are interested. So it is knowledge based design, or it is data based decision making, or database design. And the commercial person is talking to the stores managers and analyzing the previous sales, and the supply chain person who ensures that the agreement to deliver the new fashion collection to the shops every week, and also change collections in 70% of the stores could actually be made. So I mean, let's look at whatever may be the governance structure. You can have it because it's a hierarchical structure. It's basically all products. It's not product dependent. It's whether it is a skirt or something, somebody manages, but the designers are different and all that. What is the risk of such a unusual business model? When do some things fail? The explicit public and general nature of business model makes replicating another firm's business model trivial. See, how do people say, how do you become highly competitive so that nobody else can basically imitate you? That's the thing that this one. But the model that Jara has is it looks easily imitable. Why? That's because, you crowdsource and the design, and once you have the designs which people want, anybody can do the sewing, anybody can do the ironing, and it can go to this market. So there can be several others who are doing, and so the Jaras can be counterized. All evidence to this is contradictory, because supposing you look at multiple failures of airlines like Delta, Continental, and so forth to replicate the business model of Southwest. You know, Southwest Airlines in the United States is a very popular airline, and it is very successful model which imitated the bus model, where it outsources everything except it's this one, the aircrafts and all that. And it looks as though, once you understand the model, it looks as though it is easily replicable. But and then lot of commercial airlines like Delta and Continental and so on, they basically try to imitate what Delta is doing, but then they failed. So attempt to replicate best practice operations typically disappoint. Replications often fail to appreciate the complex interconnections of multiple activities that constitute the best practice. So, what is the best practice here? What is it that Jira has? It's not just core competencies and doing this and that and the procedure or something. Maybe somebody can imitate it better and undo things better, but it's not always, it may not be always possible, and it's not easy. So, the risk of failure of Jira is very little. In other words, if the market is down, you don't manufacture. You manufacture whatever is the one that the market wants. If there is high inflation and people cannot afford high cost products, Jira can manufacture low cost products and sell it to the market. So, but on the other hand, it does everything itself. So, is it competitive with other companies? The answer is, it is competitive with the other companies in several other factors. Like other companies, they cannot sell all the products they have, so they have extra stock which they have to basically discount, to sell at discount. But Jira sells most of its stock at the right price, at the right price tags. It doesn't discount very much. So, there are other ways in which Jira gains and so on. So, it's basically it is an excellent example of something unusual, a company doing something unusual and being the best of the companies and so on. So, let us look at another company, which is Cemex, which is a cement company, and it deals with the entire ecosystem rather than just the cement. So, let us look at that, and the customers need construction solutions, not cement. Well, cement is something which you cannot really use unless it is along with other materials. It's used in building construction and all that. So, you require other materials like steel, like gravel and others use it. So, basically we need to supply not only cement, but also a broad range of other building materials like steel, leveraging our world class logistics and distribution capabilities to help our customers succeed. So, the main idea here is that don't sell just cement, sell building materials. Now, that makes you a distributor rather than a manufacturer, but whatever it is, you are a company which are supplying building material solutions, not just cement. That's the decision of this one. So, the Cemex has who are all the designs and manages specific supply chains for each customer segment. So, it has customers who are distributors. They have small house constructors, ready mix concrete dealers, value added transformation companies like slabs, prefabricated concrete blocks, and large infrastructure projects like airports, roads, housing complexes, etc. So, basically for all this, each has a different value chain. For example, distributors, you have to supply cement, gravel and all that to the distributors at this. So, all that you are doing is apart from your cement, for other materials you are using the distributors, the volumes to negotiate with the main players. It's like steel companies and so on. And in small house constructors, it's important that they basically are small, they require financial help, and also they also require in small quantities. So, they may not build the entire house, they may basically extend a room and so on, or have some equipment and so on. So, they should be able to get financial assistance and do this. And for example, in large infrastructure projects like airports, roads and so on, you can create a supply hub just before a project, this one. Once you create the supply hub, then all the material that is needed is there, and they can kit it and supply it to as and when required and so on. But the supply hub is owned by Cemex. So, in other words, you are trying to add value to the people and taking the role of a distributor rather than a cement manufacturer. Now, in large infrastructure projects, they also do help in terms of architecture, how to architect the whole thing. So, the point here is that when you're doing such a, this one extend the whole thing into such a big scale, supplying building materials, architects and financials and so on, then cement becomes only a small part of the whole deal that you are selling. So it's very easy to sell your cement when you are talking of the large pie, because cement may become only 15-20% of the pie. And when you are doing so many things, nobody bothers what kind of cement, as long as the quality of the cement is this one. So your marketing is in terms of the value chains for each of your customers, rather than doing this just only cement, where a lot of other companies just do the cement. So if you look at the organization structure of this, is they have to produce cement, that is the manager production, procurement, quality, logistics, delivery and so on, that is for the cement. There are services that you require for this company, like financial, HR, ICT and ITES and so on. So they are required manager services, but there is a managing director for each of these customers. They are customer focused, customer manager small companies, manager high-end customers, manager distribution and so on, and basically they do all the things that this. So what are you selling? What does Cemex sell? The governance structure is organized according to the customers, as we have seen before, and although it is basically vertically integrated. So what we have here is, we have shown here is, we have organizations which are vertically integrated, and they have basically, we have shown two examples. One is cement, which is a commodity product, and another one is a highly fashionable apparel project, Zara and Cemex, and looked at their governing structures. Both are two companies which are doing very well, and you will learn some peculiarities of these companies while looking at their organization structures. But they are doing very well because their organization structures are very good. So that's an important point. And both the organization structures look so simple, you understand it, and they look based on the so-called best practices, and they look imitable, but they are not easily imitable. Thank you.